In a world just constantly buzzing with information, it often feels like you need a special kind of navigation system, right?
Absolutely.
Especially for compliance, cybersecurity. It feels like the ground shifts under your feet almost daily.
It really does. The sheer amount of information,
hmm
it can be dizzying.
hmm
Trying to figure out what actually matters. That's the challenge.
Well, that's exactly what we're trying to do here today. We want to cut through all that noise, bring you a really focused deep dive.
Mhm.
We're looking at the biggest global compliance and cybersecurity news from, well, basically the last week or two.
Super recent stuff.
Yeah, really fresh. We've got a stack of articles, reports, updates, mostly end of June, first few days of July 2025. And the mission is simple: pull out the key insights, maybe some surprising facts, and help you understand not just what's going on, but, why it actually matters.
Think of it like we're zeroing in on the absolute latest changes, giving you that immediate context for these really fast-moving areas.
Okay, great. So let's dig in. First up, we've got theme one, the shifting sands in healthcare compliance and data security. Healthcare always seems to be right there in the thick of it, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Sensitive data, complex rules.
Yeah.
It's constant. And speaking of shifts, there was big news from OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, on July 2nd.
OSHA, right. What happened there?
Well, they've proposed removing their COVID-19 emergency temporary standard.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and that's not just, ticking a box. It signals a potential big shift back towards how things were before the pandemic, regulation-wise.
So what does that mean for businesses, practically speaking?
It could mean revisiting safety protocols, things like sick leave, maybe even workplace density rules that were tied specifically to that standard. They might need adjusting.
Got it. And while we're talking regulations, IPTOS seems to be constantly evolving, or maybe under scrutiny is a better word.
Under scrutiny, definitely. We saw news on July 1st that a HIPAA privacy rule that was previously vacated, well, it's now leaving entities more exposed to risks at the state level.
More state-level risk. That sounds like adding another layer of complexity.
It absolutely does. Because when a federal rule gets pulled back, states can, and often do, step in with their own rules, sometimes stricter ones.
Right.
So if you operate nationally, suddenly you're juggling this patchwork of different state regulations. It definitely ramps up the compliance challenge.
And connecting to that, there was also news, again, on July 1st, about a Texas federal district court changing the HIPAA reproductive health privacy rule.
Yes, that's right. A significant change. And it immediately brings up the question of, could this end up challenged at the Supreme Court level? It really highlights how dynamic this all is and how sensitive. We're just reporting the development here, of course.
Of course. And it really underlines something else reported on the first, just how crucial it is for HR professionals to really get cybersecurity and IPAO.
Oh, absolutely critical.
Especially for protecting employee data. They're kind of on the front lines, aren't they?
They really are. HR deals with so much sensitive information, so having that understanding is key. And on a practical note, there was a report July 2nd looking at the top 5 IPA-compliant email services.
Ah, okay. Something concrete people can use.
Exactly. An actionable takeaway for organizations wanting to boost their secure communications right now.
But even with solutions emerging, these big incidents, they keep happening. We heard July 1st that CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, they notified over 103,000 Medicare beneficiaries about unauthorized account creations.
103,000. That's huge.
And then separately, SA Health confirmed almost 264,000 patients were hit by a cyber attack back in April. The scale is just mind-boggling sometimes.
It really is. It just shows how relentless these threats are. But also on July 1st, something else significant. The Department of Justice announced the largest ever healthcare fraud takedown.
The largest ever. Wow.
Yeah. So it shows that while we're battling cyber attacks, the enforcement against traditional fraud is also ramping up massively. It's a two-pronged fight, really.
That focus on fighting back, it leads right into training, doesn't it? I saw something about that too.
It does. On July 2nd, Dr. Randolph Rash, a nursing educator, called for a complete overhaul of compliance training for healthcare students.
An overhaul, given everything we've just discussed, that makes a lot of sense. Start building that foundation earlier.
Exactly. Prepare them from the ground up. And right alongside that news, Exat and Compliance Junction launched a new partnership. So you can see the industry is moving to strengthen that educational piece.
It's about getting proactive, not just reacting.
Precisely. Which actually transitions us nicely into our theme too. Navigating the complexities of financial compliance and cyber resilience. Because the financial sector, They're facing their own intense pressures.
Definitely. And this next piece really caught my eye. A report from July 1st said banks are still struggling, like really struggling, with DORA compliance. One article even said it's testing the limit.
Yeah, DORA. That's the EU's Digital Operational Resilience Act.
Right. Why is that proving so tough for them?
Well, it's the sheer scope of it. DORA isn't just about tweaking IT systems. It forces banks to fundamentally rethink their entire approach to digital resilience.
Okay.
Everything from managing risks from third-party vendors to how they report incidents, often across these huge, complex, sometimes older systems, it can mean really costly, intricate changes.
And it's not static either, is it? Things like AI keep adding new wrinkles.
Exactly. New testing guidance came out for banks and finance firms specifically on managing AI risks. That was reported June 27th.
So just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. It shows just how fast AI is reshaping the regulatory landscape. We need entirely new ways to think about identifying and handling those specific risks.
It's not all struggle, though. There are global shifts happening, too. I saw an interesting article title from July 1st, The Compliance Edge, Why Mexico's Financial Reforms Are a Goldmine for Investors.
Oh, that's a great example. It shows how getting a handle on compliance, understanding these regulatory changes, can actually create a competitive advantage, open up opportunities globally.
A gold mine, potentially?
Potentially, yeah.
Ah.
But on the other side of that coin, you have the ongoing fight against cybercrime. Europol announced on June 30th they dismantled a huge cryptocurrency fraud network.
How huge are we talking?
$540 million. They arrested 5 suspects.
Wow. 540 million.
Yeah. It just shows the scale of these criminal operations, but also the international effort required to take them down.
A massive bust. And when you talk about fighting these threats, things like auditing, testing,
Right.
they're crucial. There is a strong message on June 30th about CPS 230. That's the Australian standard, right?
Right, for operational risk management. The message was clear. It's not merely about ticking boxes.
So regulators want deeper engagement, not just surface level stuff.
Absolutely. They want real embedded resilience. And what's really interesting here is how the thinking around pen testing, penetration testing is changing. Well, Pentair's field CSO said on June 30th that sentiment is changing fast. And then Cobalt, another player in that space, said their goal, reported June 27th, is to make pen testing as simple as ordering a pizza.
As simple as ordering a pizza, that's ambitious.
It is. But it points to this industry drive for more continuous, easier to integrate security checks, moving away from just, say, an annual test.
Making it more accessible. I like that. Still, sounds like there are challenges. K2View warned on June 26 about gaps still existing in test data management.
Yeah, so the foundations still need work, definitely. And related to that, governance is key. There's an article, June 26, about assessing board effectiveness, getting boards ready for what's coming. Critical piece.
Starts at the top, right?
Absolutely. And one more on finance from June 26, a warning about the EAA countdown. This is about accessibility.
EAA.
European Accessibility Act. It's basically saying financial QA teams face an accessibility reckoning, making sure financial apps, websites, services, they're usable by people with disabilities.
Yeah.
That's becoming a major compliance focus.
Okay, accessibility. Another important area. Let's shift slightly to theme 3, broader data privacy and transparency concerns. This feels like it touches almost every sector now.
It really does. Look at the news from June 30th. The DeepSeek app facing a ban in Germany. Why? For illegally transferring user data.
Banned in Germany. Okay.
Yeah. It's a clear sign that data privacy enforcement has teeth, and it has global reach. Data flows across borders, but so do the regulations, like GDPR in Europe.
So companies operating internationally really need to watch those cross-border data transfers.
They absolutely do. It raises that tough question. How do you navigate all these different, sometimes conflicting global privacy rules? Also, on June 26th, there were reflections coming out of the European Whistleblowing Conference.
Whistleblowing, okay.
Yeah, it just hints at this growing expectation for transparency and accountability across the board, not just in finance. A broader cultural shift, maybe.
Definitely something to keep an eye on. Okay, finally, let's touch briefly on theme 4. A look at other compliance-related policy shifts. Sometimes compliance pops up in areas you might not immediately expect.
That's true, like the news from June 27th about the Trump administration ending temporary protected status TPS for Haitian immigrants. That takes effect September 2nd, 2025.
Okay, TPS for Haitian immigrants ending. How does that connect to compliance? Again, reporting impartially here on the policy change itself.
Right. Well, purely from a compliance perspective, this kind of major policy shift has immediate knock-on effects. Think about employers needing to re-verify workforce eligibility. social services agencies adapting, even schools.
Ah, I see. So it creates a whole cascade of compliance requirements for different organizations.
Exactly. It shows how interconnected compliance is. It can touch immigration policy, employment law, social services, all stemming from one policy decision. It requires rapid adaptation across many sectors.
So when we pull all this together, stepping back from this deep dive, it's kind of amazing, isn't it? The sheer range of stuff we've covered just from the last week or two.
It really is. The breadth and how interconnected it all feels. We went from specific IPA email services and AI risk in banking,
Yeah.
all the way to huge global data privacy actions and, like you said, even immigration policy shifts.
It drives home that staying informed isn't just about, avoiding fines. It's not just box ticking.
No, not at all. It's fundamentally about understanding these powerful forces that are actively shaping industries, shaping regulations, and ultimately shaping, well, daily life.
You really have gotten some crucial insights just now into how fast things are changing.
Absolutely. Just in the past couple of weeks, the landscape has visibly shifted.
Which leads me to, I guess, a final thought for you to consider as we wrap up.
Okay.
With technology accelerating like it is, global events moving so fast, what are the next areas? What unexpected corners of our lives might suddenly become zones of compliance that we're not even thinking about today?
Hmm. That's a really interesting question. What uncharted territory will regulation need to map out next if things get even more complex and interconnected?
Something to mull over.